May you be deeply blessed today, and may divine clarity just really guide your steps, bringing profound peace to you throughout the week ahead.
Absolutely.
You are definitely going to need that clarity today, because we are stepping into a room so dangerous, so charged with raw, just unmitigated power that one wrong step could literally cost you your life.
It's serious stuff.
It really is. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves in this ancient text that, well, on the surface, it might look like a dense list of archaic rules to you.
Right, like an old instruction manual.
Exactly. But in reality, it is one of the most pivotal, dramatic, and high-stakes rituals in all of biblical history.
Yep.
We're unpacking Leviticus chapter 16 today.
Yeah, and we'll be leaning heavily on the historical notes, the translation nuances, and all that deep theological commentary from both the Holman and NAA study Bibles.
Yes, those sources are incredible for this because, what we're looking at here is basically the ancient world's most elaborate and critical reset button for an entire nation.
The Day of Atonement.
Right, Yom Kippur. And it's a reset button that involves extreme literal danger, ancient mysteries about this enigmatic figure called Azazel, and the profound psychological power of watching your worst mistakes physically walk away into a wasteland.
It is such a visceral image.
Oh, totally.
Mm-hmm.
But to understand any of this, we really have to look at the inciting incident. Because Leviticus 16 does not open with some calm theological treatise.
No, not at all.
It opens in the immediate aftermath of a terrifying tragedy.
Yeah, the very first verse anchors this entire ritual in grief and, honestly, terror.
Yeah.
It explicitly states that the Lord spoke to Moses after the death of Aaron's two sons.
Nadab and Abihu.
Right, Nadab and Abihu. Aaron was the high priest of Israel, the spiritual leader of the people. And his sons had approached the divine presence improperly.
They offered unauthorized fire, right?
Exactly. They offered unauthorized fire, they breached the strict protocols of the sanctuary, and they were instantly consumed by fire from the Lord.
It's just, whenever I read that, my mind immediately goes to a modern analogy just to make sense of the sheer scale of the danger.
What do you mean?
Well, today, when you think of a sanctuary or a holy place, you picture this quiet, peaceful building, like a place of quiet refuge where you go to sit and think.
Oh, sure, yeah. A safe space.
Right. But reading these study notes, approaching the Holy of Holies back then was absolutely nothing like walking into a modern place of worship.
Not even close.
It was more like approaching a highly radioactive core or, handling a massively powerful live electrical wire without any grounding.
That is a great way to put it.
The holiness of God in these texts is just this raw, lethal energy to anything impure.
That analogy really perfectly captures the essential tension of the text.
Yeah.
Because the tabernacle, this sacred tent where God's presence actually resided, was physically located right in the dead center of the Israelite camp.
Just right in the middle of everything.
Exactly. Hundreds of thousands of flawed, imperfect people lived their daily lives surrounding it. And according to the NAA and Holman study notes, the ancient Israelites understood that this central sanctuary actually accumulated the spiritual pollution of the people's sins over the course of the year.
Like a sponge.
Yeah, exactly. Sitting in the middle of their daily moral failures and ritual impurities, the tabernacle essentially absorbed the ambient contamination of the entire nation.
Wait, okay, I'm actually a bit confused by that concept.
How so?
If God is perfectly holy, why would he allow his sanctuary to become a sponge or like a filter for toxic human sin in the first place? Doesn't sitting in the middle of a spiritual landfill contradict the very idea of divine perfection?
It definitely seems contradictory at first, right?
Yeah.
Until you consider the alternative.
Which is?
Well, the underlying theology here is that God deeply desires to dwell intimately with his people. But because he is purely holy, and they are flawed, his proximity is naturally dangerous to them.
Oh, I see.
And their impurity is an affront to his space. So allowing the sanctuary to absorb this impurity is actually an act of immense grace.
Wow, okay. It's a divine concession.
Exactly. God provides this localized zone where the contamination can be contained rather than just letting it destroy the camp.
That makes a lot of sense.
But just like a physical filter trapping highly toxic materials, it has a capacity limit.
Right, you have to change the filter eventually.
Yes.
Right.
So once a year, it required a massive, comprehensive, deep clean to purge the accumulated toxins and restore it to a state of absolute purity. Because without this annual purge, the divine presence would have to withdraw completely.
Okay, so the stakes are literally life, death, and the presence of God abandoning the nation.
Incredibly high stakes.
So how does a flawed human being, even the high priest, even prepare for that kind of exposure? Because you can't just stroll in wearing your everyday work clothes to handle spiritual hazardous waste.
No, you really can't.
Yeah.
And the preparation is intensely specific,
Yeah.
and it strips away all human ego.
Oh, I found this part fascinating in the notes.
Yeah. So typically the high priest wore these magnificent jewel-encrusted garments. We're talking vibrant blues, purples, gold threads, and a breastplate bearing precious stones representing the tribes of Israel.
It was an outfit designed to project authority, right? Beauty and status.
Exactly. But God explicitly commands Aaron to leave all of that behind. He must bathe his entire body in water and put on garments made solely of plain white linen.
Just a linen tunic, undergarments, a sash, and a turban.
Yep. Just basics.
The Holman materials highlight this wardrobe change as a profound act of psychological and theological leveling. By taking off the gold and the jewels, Aaron is stripping away every single ounce of his societal status, his hierarchy, and his pretension.
He is reducing himself to the purest, most basic human denominator. Linen is simple, it's clean, and notably, it is an agricultural product.
Right, not an animal product like wool.
Exactly. Wool causes human sweat. And sweat, in the ancient Near Eastern context, represented human toil and impurity.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, so before the absolute lethal holiness of the divine, Aaron isn't a powerful dignitary. He is a fragile, flawed man stepping into the breach in just as much need of grace as the lowest member of the congregation.
The plain white linen is just this physical manifestation of absolute submission.
Precisely.
And the preparation doesn't even stop with the clothes, because once he's dressed in this humble linen, he has to engineer a survival mechanism. He essentially builds an ancient hazmat suit out of smoke.
That is a great image.
Right. The text says Aaron must take a censer filled with burning coals directly from the altar, grab 2 handfuls of finely ground aromatic incense, and step inside the veil.
The thick curtains separating the Holy of Holies from the rest of the tabernacle.
Yeah. And he dumps the incense on the coals to create a massive, thick cloud of smoke right over the mercy seat, the solid gold cover of the Ark of the Covenant. And the text states bluntly, he does this so that he does not die.
It's very direct. And that smoke screen serves a dual, incredibly vital purpose. Theologically, that cloud represents the protective, obscuring covering of God's presence.
Because human eyes just cannot look upon the unshielded glory of the divine and survive.
Exactly. The smoke creates a physical, necessary barrier, a buffer between human frailty and divine perfection.
But there is a practical sensory angle to this as well, based on the specific ingredients mentioned in the study notes.
Oh yeah, the formulation of the incense was definitely not random.
What was in it again?
Well, the Holman notes point out it included specific aromatic spices like stacte, onica, and galbanum mixed with pure frankincense.
Okay, so a very specific blend.
Very specific. Galbanum, for instance, has a very deep, pungent, musky aroma when it's burned. And this heavy scent profile was completely necessary because of the environment Aaron was entering.
Right, the Holy of Holies was the small, enclosed, unventilated space inside a thick tent.
Exactly. And what Aaron was about to do involved bringing in fresh animal blood. The metallic, overwhelming odor of blood in that confined space would have been just suffocating.
Oh, man. Yeah, that would be intense.
So the intensely formulated incense masked the visceral reality of the sacrifice, making it physically tolerable for Aaron to complete the intricate ritual without being totally overwhelmed.
Okay, so Aaron is inside the veil. He is wrapped in simple linen. He is shielded by a thick, heavy, sweet-smelling cloud of smoke. He has survived the entrance.
Step 1 complete.
Right, but simply surviving doesn't clean the room. How does a mere mortal actually scrub away the accumulated spiritual toxic waste of an entire nation?
This brings us to the core mechanism of the chapter, a tale of 2 goats.
Yes. Aaron takes 2 goats from the congregation and casts lots to determine their respective roles.
Right. One lot falls for the Lord, and the other lot falls for this mysterious concept or entity referred to as Azazel.
Azazel. Such a fascinating word.
It really is. And the entire deep clean of the nation hinges on the distinct opposing functions of these 2 animals.
Okay, so the first goat, the one designated for the Lord, operates as the sin offering. Aaron slaughters this goat outside, catches its blood, and brings that blood inside the smoky, dangerous Holy of Holies,
Right.
and he dips his finger in the blood and sprinkles it on the east side of the mercy seat, and then sprinkles it 7 times directly in front of the mercy seat. It is an intensely visceral, bloody scene.
It really is a striking image.
He is physically applying this blood to the furniture of the sanctuary to purge the space. But why blood?
Well, to grasp why blood is the mechanism for cleaning, we have to drill down into the Hebrew word used throughout this chapter for atonement.
Which is kafar.
Yes, kafar. The Holman glossary notes that kafar carries the meaning to cover over, to wipe clean, or to ransom. In the biblical worldview, blood is synonymous with life.
Right. The text in Leviticus explicitly states elsewhere that the life of a creature is in its blood.
Exactly. By applying the blood of the unblemished goat, Aaron is applying pure, uncontaminated life to the polluted sanctuary.
Let me try out an analogy here. Tell me if this tracks.
Sure, go for it.
Think of the nation's accumulated sins as a massive, compounding financial debt recorded on a ledger. The sheer weight of this debt has bankrupted the nation's spiritual standing.
Okay, I like where this is going.
The blood of the first goat is the liquid currency that pays that debt. When Aaron sprinkles the blood, he is taking that currency, pouring it over the ledger, and completely erasing the negative balance.
That's a really solid way to look at it.
The debt is settled, and the sanctuary is out of default.
That perfectly captures the transactional and purifying nature of the first goat. The shedding of blood satisfies the requirements of justice. The pure life of the substitute wipes away the toxic death energy of the people's sin.
So the space is clean.
Right. The space is effectively neutralized and restored to its pristine condition. God can safely remain in the camp.
Okay, so the debt is paid behind closed doors, hidden in a cloud of smoke. But then we arrive at the second goat, the one chosen by Lot for Azazel.
The scape.
Yeah. Aaron takes this living goat, places both of his hands firmly, bearing down with his weight onto the animal's head, and he verbally confesses over it all the iniquities of the children of Israel, all their rebellions, all their specific sins.
The text vividly says he puts them on the head of the goat.
Literally transferring them. And then a designated handler leads this goat away, walking it out of the camp into a solitary, uninhabited wasteland and abandons it.
Out into the wilderness.
But before we talk about the impact of that, we have to address the elephant in the room. What in the world is Azazel?
Oh, this is the big debate.
Because the study Bibles offer 3 wildly different interpretations for this single Hebrew word.
Yeah, it remains one of the most debated, enigmatic words in the entire Hebrew Bible, primarily because it appears absolutely nowhere else, except in this specific chapter of Leviticus.
Wow, nowhere else.
Nowhere else. So the Holman and NAA study notes break down the 3 primary scholarly theories. The first theory, and the one that shaped the English language, interprets Azazel as a compound word meaning the goat that goes away.
Okay, the literal scapegoat.
Right. William Tyndale actually coined the term scapegoat in his 1530 Bible translation based on this idea. The Portuguese NAA translates it similarly as bode emissario, the emissary goat. Under this view, Azazel just describes the goat's job description.
A descriptive title makes sense to me. What is the second theory?
The second theory suggests Azazel refers to a specific, jagged geographical location. Later rabbinic traditions developed this idea, interpreting Azazel as a rough, steep cliff in the desert.
A cliff?
Yeah, they believe the goat was led to this specific precipice and pushed over the edge to ensure it could never wander back into the camp, carrying the nation's sins.
Sending the toxic waste to a remote dumping ground. That's intense.
It is.
But the third theory in the study notes is the one that really demands an explanation, because some ancient Jewish traditions believed Azazel was the proper name of a demonic entity.
Or a fallen angel.
Right. That inhabited the desolate wasteland. Hold on. You're telling me the ancient Israelites, who are strictly, violently commanded to worship only one God, who are constantly told to abhor the idols and demons of Egypt and Canaan, were instructed by that same God to send a goat to a demon in the desert.
It's shocking, isn't it?
How does that not violate their entire monotheistic theology?
It sounds like a massive contradiction until you look closely at the mechanics of the ritual compared to surrounding ancient Near Eastern cultures.
Okay, unpack that.
Well, in Babylonian or Hittite rituals, they also used animals to carry away plagues or curses, but they often involved magical incantations and offerings made to the underworld deities to appease them.
Like trying to bribe the demons.
Exactly. But the Israelites were doing something radically different. The goat sent to Azazel is absolutely not a sacrifice. It is not killed on an altar. Its blood is not collected, and no worship is offered to the desert.
Oh, I see.
It is a deportation. If Azazel is indeed a demonic figure representing chaos and evil, sending the goat to him is an act of supreme theological defiance.
A return to sender.
Yes, return to sender. The high priest is effectively saying, these sins, these rebellions, and this moral decay do not belong in the holy camp of the Lord. They belong to the realm of death, chaos, and the demonic wasteland. We banish them back to where they came from.
Wow. That changes everything. You know, if you are listening to this right now, perhaps on your commute or sitting at a desk and thinking, this all sounds incredibly bloody, archaic, and strange, you really have to pause and put yourself in the shoes of an ancient Israelite.
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine feeling the physical, crushing weight of your guilt, your failures, and your community's deep moral rot.
And this is where the psychological genius of the dual goat ritual becomes clear. Because the first goat, sacrificed behind the veil, satisfies the cosmic requirement of justice. It pays the debt.
But the average Israelite cannot see that happening.
Exactly. They are standing outside the tabernacle courtyard, miles away from the Holy of Holies, waiting in tense silence. They need a tangible, communal experience of relief.
They need to see the receipt.
Yes, they need the receipt. And the scapegoat provides the receipt. By having Aaron publicly, physically lay his hands on the animal and loudly confess the specific sins of the nation, the people watch their invisible guilt get transferred onto a physical vessel.
And then they watch that vessel walk away.
Imagine the profound, staggering relief of watching that animal get smaller and smaller on the desert horizon until it completely disappears. It is a visceral, irrefutable, visual guarantee that their guilt has been totally removed from their community.
I mean, that would be an incredibly powerful experience, but the text is also really clear that dealing with this kind of toxic spiritual waste leaves a mark. The contagion of impurity is treated almost like a physical radioactive substance.
It rubs off on whatever it touches.
Right. According to the NAA source, the designated handler who led that scapegoat into the desert didn't just walk back into the camp and sit down with his family for dinner. By touching the goat, carrying the sins, he contracted the impurity. He became a carrier.
The ancient worldview saw ritual impurity as an ontological reality, almost like a virus. The man who leads the scapegoat away and the man who takes the carcasses of the sacrificed animals outside the camp to burn them both become dangerously contaminated by their proximity to the sin-bearing vessels.
They were required to wash their clothes and aggressively bathe their entire bodies in water before they were permitted to re-enter the community. It just reinforces the absolute severity of the contamination.
You do not treat moral failure casually.
Not at all. And because of the critical necessity of this deep clean, this event wasn't just a one-off emergency response to Aaron's son's dying. It was permanently institutionalized.
Yeah, the sources outline how Leviticus 16 became the permanent annual statute of Yom Kippur. It was mandated to occur every single year on the 10th day of the 7th month, the month of Tishri, which falls in our modern September or October.
And crucially, it was not a joyous festival of celebration like Passover or the Feast of Tabernacles.
No, it was incredibly heavy.
The statute required it to be a Sabbath of total, unyielding rest. No work could be done by anyone in the camp. And they were commanded to afflict their souls.
Afflicting the soul is a Hebrew idiom for intense self-denial and self-mortification. In practice, this meant absolute fasting.
No food, no water.
Right. Accompanied by deep prayer, weeping, and a posture of complete vulnerable humility before God. It was the single day of the year where the entire machinery of society stopped functioning, and the absolute focus of hundreds of thousands of people was directed entirely toward the confession of sins and the desperate need for divine forgiveness.
A total national reset. But here is where the deep dive takes a fascinating turn. Reading the extensive commentary from the study Bibles, it is clear they do not view Leviticus 16 merely as an isolated piece of ancient anthropology.
Definitely not.
They draw a direct, deliberate, and highly detailed line from this bloody desert ritual straight into the New Testament.
Yeah, for the Christian tradition, reading Leviticus 16 solely as ancient history misses the entire point of the text. The study notes extensively reference the New Testament book of Hebrews.
Oh, Hebrews has so much to say about this.
It does. It looks back at the high priest, the linen garments, the blood, the smoke, and the scapegoat, and identifies the entire elaborate system as a massive architectural shadow.
Like a preview.
Exactly. It was a temporary rehearsal pointing toward a permanent future reality.
The Christian typology woven through these notes is stunning. Just consider the geography of the ritual for a second.
Okay.
The remains of the sacrificed animals had to be taken completely outside the camp to be destroyed. The scapegoat was driven outside the camp into the wasteland. The author of Hebrews explicitly connects this geography to Jesus, pointing out that Jesus was crucified outside the gate of the city of Jerusalem.
That's a huge connection.
Right. He was physically exiled from the holy center, bearing the disgrace and the sin of the people out into the cursed space, fulfilling the role of the scapegoat perfectly.
Furthermore, the parallels elevate the status of the high priest himself. Hebrews argues that Christ functions as both the ultimate high priest and the ultimate sacrifice.
He didn't enter a localized physical sanctuary constructed out of animal skins and wood.
No, and he didn't carry the blood of goats and calves. He entered the ultimate heavenly reality by his own blood.
And think about the veil, that thick, heavy curtain that separated the lethal, holy presence of God from the flawed people. The curtain Aaron had to hide behind, with his hazmat suit of formulated smoke just to survive.
Right.
The Gospels record that at the exact moment of Christ's death on the cross outside the city, the veil in the temple in Jerusalem was violently torn completely in two, from top to bottom.
The tearing of the veil is the monumental climax of this entire theological arc. It visually and physically signifies that the barrier of lethal holiness has been fundamentally altered.
It's open.
Yes. The complex, terrifying, and ultimately temporary system of animal blood and annual deep cleaning. A system that always failed because human beings kept sinning, requiring another Yom Kippur. Every single Tishri is replaced.
It's done.
It is superseded by a single, permanent act of purification. The explosive danger of approaching God is resolved, and access to the divine presence is thrown wide open to humanity through the atoning work of Christ.
It takes a highly localized, deeply terrifying yearly maintenance routine for a desert tabernacle and expands it into a permanent universal reality for the human soul. I mean, it is just a breathtaking connection to make across thousands of years of recorded history.
It really is profound when you look at the whole picture.
You know, looking at the totality of this chapter, the raw danger, the heavy smoke, the blood, and the solitary goat wandering into the wasteland, it leaves me with a profound realization about human nature.
What's that?
Well, even today, in our highly secular, hyper-connected, technologically advanced world, human beings still desperately, obsessively seek out scapegoats.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we do.
We don't cast ancient lots over farm animals anymore, but look at the architecture of our modern society. We are constantly looking for a person, a demographic, a corporation, or a public figure to load all of our societal guilt, our ambient anxieties, and our collective moral failures onto
You pile our sins on their heads.
Exactly. And then what do? We drive them out of the camp, we cancel them, we exile them, we push them into the modern solitary wasteland of permanent public disgrace.
Because we think it cleanses us.
Right. We do this because we secretly hope that if we just push them far enough away and ruin them completely, our own camp will finally feel clean.
That is heavy.
Perhaps Leviticus 16 isn't just an archaic, bloody ritual from the Bronze Age. Perhaps it exposes a fundamental, unshakable psychological need wired into the human condition. The absolute, desperate need to physically see our guilt removed from us. A need that ancient Israel solved through an astonishing, visceral ritual in the desert, and a need that we are still, in our own deeply flawed ways, trying to resolve today. God blesses all the listeners.